How do you get senior leadership in your church to take your ideas seriously?
Especially when you're younger or not as seasoned in ministry.
You do whatever it takes. Guilt, shame, threats.
Alternatively, we have some less abrasive ideas to share with you as well.
If you say so.
This is how to change a stubborn church.
Well, hey there, and welcome to the Pro Church Tools Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Shearer, your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host, it's Bishop Bro Alexander Mills.
Hello.
We've got a ton of great questions from the people of Pro Church Nation today. If you want your question answered, you can send us a text to 1-800-485-3139 or email us hello@prochurchtools.com. You can subscribe to the show, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or you can watch full-length episodes on YouTube. On today's episode of Bro Church Tools, Alex, take us away with the first question.
You should be watching on YouTube because every once in a while you'll get to see a peek of like Brady's upper thigh. On a recent episode, we peeped some of the tats. So you're not going to see that if you're just listening.
Yeah, I mean, I think our audience is like 82% male, so I don't know if that's a huge draw.
That's a different level of intrigue. First question on today's Bro Church Tools episode. How do I get leadership to take social media seriously and use it as an outreach tool rather than just using it as a last-minute announcements channel? I've already given up on using announcements in a sensible way. No, nobody else from church listens to this. That would involve a willingness to learn, ... Yikes.
Yikes. So this question does end on a bit of a bitter note, but this form of question is one that we receive perhaps more than any other.
Yep.
How do we navigate senior leadership being stubborn, unwillingness to change? They don't listen to what I have to say. So this is when kind of, your church has done something a certain way. It's time to try something new, time for a change. How can you possibly make that happen? So let's break down the process. Step one is aligning over the mission, because right now, and in these situations, what you have are two parties, each with, in their mind, different goals, thinking that the other party has no idea what is actually needed. So before you can begin even plotting out a course of action, you need to reconcile those differences. The analogy that we always use is if you're getting in the car with someone and you're trying to get to a destination, you both need to agree on the destination. Otherwise, when you get there, one of you is going to be like, hey, why are we here? This is not where we were supposed to be going. That's what we're typically dealing with in these situations, because you got the pastor, the senior leader, and then the other pastor or the not senior leader, and they both think they're going to different places because neither of them is elevating the mission. The way to reconcile the differences is to say, hey, at the end of the day, this is the mission of the church. This is what we want to fulfill. So are we in agreement over that? Always the first step. No other way around it. Are we in agreement that this is the mission? So this is the destination we're trying to get to once we get into this vehicle together. Yes? Okay. Then let's move to step two. Now it's on you, person asking the question, to demonstrate the value of what you're proposing by first linking it to the mission and then showing its merit with what we call the triple S framework. That's stories, stats, and steps. So in this case, let's say you're trying to establish that social media as a ministry is superior in relation to fulfilling the mission of the church relative to social media as a last-minute announcements outlet. So it's your job to prove that theory with stories, stats, and steps. Stories. You might use a personal anecdote of when your church did use social as a ministry tool and what it led to. Or if you don't have that, because you're like, Brady, if I had that, I wouldn't be asking you the question. You could go to socialsermons.com/case studies, or any number of the times that we post screenshots of when people are putting these tools and tactics into action and seeing positive effects and say, hey, this isn't our church, but look at this other church and how they used ministry and did social that way. And look at it, it's great. That's stories. Stats, because stories are just anecdotal and you never know. Maybe your pastor will see right through that and be like, yeah, I can also tell you a story of when my, ex-cousin used social and they died. R.I.P.
Okay.
So then that's where stats come in. Stats are empirical evidence broadly over all people and stories that say, hey, this isn't just an anecdotal thing. Yes, that's emotional and it grips you and it's storytelling, but here is demonstrable proof that is empirical that suggests that what I'm saying is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And then steps. Okay, I'm convinced. What are the actionable items that we need to pursue to see this come to fruition? And then once you've done that, the third step is to ask for resources from senior leadership. This is the final step. Problem is, a lot of people rush to make this the first step They go to the senior leader and they say, hey, I want this thing to happen. Can you do this? Well, the senior leader, Alex, you know this, as a senior leader in your churches, every time you do church, someone comes up to you and says, hey, we should do this. Ever thought about that? And you're like, you're right. I've never thought about that. Or two, you're right. You know what? Now I know where to put all my money and time.
Right. Yeah.
I actually didn't know where we should put it.
Storehouses just full of money and time.
Finally, someone can throw this at. So you want this to be last after you've agreed on the broad trajectory you're heading on as a church toward the fulfillment of that mission. You've demonstrated that your idea is sound. Stories, stats, and steps. This is going to work. You know, you can even sneak in something else. Do a little bit of a pilot project. But hey, I'm not asking you to commit to something permanent, but can we test this for a week, a month, 3 months, and just see? I'm not asking, hey, keep doing what you're doing, but I'm going to try my own thing, and let's just see how it goes. That way you're not asking for anything. You're proving you got skin in the game. Hey, I'm willing to take my time. I'm willing to show that this makes a difference. And then one alternative option, and I call this practice change stacking. Okay?
So your alternative option is not just go to a new church. Okay, noted.
Oh, I'll get to that. So change stacking. This basically it dovetails off of everything that we just said, but if you're like, that's still not going to work, this is kind of like a less abrasive or less ambitious way of doing it. So this is inspired by the work of Catherine Milkman, PhD, and her Fresh Start study. And here's how it was articulated on a podcast that I was listening to by Dr. Maya Shankar. Quote, life changes like moving to another town, buying a home for the first time, or having children can serve as breaks from the past and the habits that we used to have. A fresh start provides the motivation and impetus to reset and take on a new identity. So here's how
to go to a new church. I get it. Yeah.
Senior leader, please.
That's not it.
So here's how change stacking can work in your church. Let's take that philosophy, that study, apply it in ministry. Stack behavior change on the back of environmental change. So examples of this in the sense of environmental change: new service times, new building, new staff. Who replaced you after you left? So what this might mean, and this is why I suggested this as an alternative, because it does require patience. It might mean waiting to make that change that you've wanted to until there's a bigger environmental change in your church. It'll be worth it in the long term, though, because the church during this reset period will be that much more likely to embrace this change because they're like, hey, we're taking on a new identity. Final note, still not happening for you? Let it go or move on. Let it go, meaning you did everything you could, right? But you've hit a brick wall, and at the end of the day, you do not have the authority to make the final call. You've done everything possible, so you should let it go, or if it's that big of a issue, move on. This change stacking, though, we have seen this in our church in huge degrees. So in the last couple of years, we moved into this new building, and it was a big building project. Anyone that's been through that, I mean, is there ever a small building project? Probably not. It doesn't exist. They're all like these massive undertakings. And the way that our pastor has described it to me now is like, it's like everything we do, it just turns to gold. It's the Midas touch. Like we used to push so hard against like resistance from people. Like, we try this. Well, what about this? And he's like, now we're in this like new building and everyone's like, well, we love it. Let's do it. That is change stack. This is the Fresh Start study in action, where we're in this new place and suddenly all the baggage, all of the expectations, all of the, this is how we always used to do it in the old place is gone. And you might not get a new building, right? But it could just be a new staff member. It could just be different service times. It could be new carpet. We put in new carpet. Suddenly people are seeing the auditorium different. The sanctuary looks different because the carpet changed everything. Oh, now that's when you want. This is the church equivalent of stacking a good bill on top of a bunch of bad ones in politics. Right? All right, we're gonna do this terrible thing. It's like, well, can we also give more money to veterans? They're like, fine, yay!
You know, I think a lot of churches experienced just such a unique God-given opportunity to capitalize on this change stacking theory, coming back and regathering after the COVID-19 pandemic. I know in our church specifically, there were thoughts and dreams and hopes and changes that we had thrown around for a long time, but always met kind of the similar resistance that a lot of us feel in churches, which is that refrain of like, well, we've always done it this way, or that's too much too fast, or this, that, and the other, whatever it is. But you know, for us, we had a 2-year break from in-person services. A lot of churches was shorter than that, but any break kind of gave us all a moment to reflect and say like, okay, when we regather, how are we going to do it? Why are we going to do it? In what ways? What changes are we going to make? And it afforded us just this real, like, it felt almost like, not entirely like a blank slate, but we certainly had more freedom than we had ever had to enact some changes that we had wanted to do for a long time, but just never had the opportunity to do. And so, at least anecdotally, like we really experienced that over the last handful of years, and it has just it's been such a good feeling to put those things into practice and have people on board to want to go after them. And for some reason, it was that time away that gave us that opportunity. But like you said, there are natural things that occur in the life of a church that present those opportunities as well. We're thinking about changing the carpet in our church, so maybe we'll get another shot in a couple months.
Environmental change. Who does Alex and his church want to become? I can hear people kind of dismissing this, being like, well, look, the pandemic's in the past, and we're not getting a new building anytime soon. I mean, we're not going to bring any new staff. Like, those are just examples. If you begin looking for opportunities for environmental change, you will find them. Every church has them. They might not happen every year, but every church goes through environmental change, stack behavioral change on top of it. Don't dismiss this idea. It can be incredibly powerful. You might never be able to convince senior leadership, or perhaps more importantly, convince the congregation as a whole of a type of change unless there's environmental change to basically be the springboard for it. Because if we're using this canvas idea, it's a blank canvas. Do whatever you want on it. Before the environmental change, you have like this, in many people's minds, this beautiful picture.
Yeah, it's complete.
Like, wait.
Yeah.
You want to take the Mona Lisa and like change it?
Soup on it?
How dare you?
Yeah.
It's a blank canvas. Throw soup on it. There's nothing there anyway.
Yeah.
Go for it.
This just brings something else to mind. You could take cues from seasonal changes as well.
Absolutely.
So like whether it's Christmas time, like maybe if your church like ours celebrates kind of an elongated period of Advent, the Advent services take on a bit of a different nature than a regular service. So you could take that opportunity, that seasonal change of rhythm, to start a new practice in your Sunday service, if that's what you're trying to do. For us, it actually happened earlier this year, coming out of Easter and out of Pentecost. In the liturgical church calendar, you enter into a 6-month period of ordinary time. And so right at the beginning of ordinary time, we did a teaching on prayer, and that was centered in the book of Psalms, just talking with our church about how the book of Psalms has historically been the prayer book of the Christian tradition, and we're learning how to pray through the Psalms. And so coming out of a season of Pentecost and Easter and coming into a season of summer that we call ordinary time, we decided, hey, for a season, we're going to open our worship service by praying a psalm together. So before we sing, we stand on the screen, we read a psalm together. And when we started doing it, I was leading the people saying, I don't know how long we're going to do this, but I assume it'll be for about the next 6 months during this ordinary time. Now we're almost 6 months into it, and it's become an identity of our church. We will not go back. And so that brief, almost invisible seasonal change, if you weren't looking for it, gave us an opportunity to actually shift the rhythm of our services, one of the cornerstone pieces of what we do as a church. So those environmental changes can be as big as a multi-million-dollar building like at Central Church, or as small as the turning of the season from spring to summer.
And case in point, we just talked about looking for that environmental change, and it immediately sprung an idea in your mind.
Yeah. So there you go. Next question. Hey, Brady, I have a few questions for you in regard to texting versus emails for churches. I'd love your perspective on them if you've got some time. Well, listener and questioner, we have some time.
It's Bro Church Tools.
Yeah. Would you ever consider mass texting communication as the primary vehicle for updates? How many text updates are too many? How would you decide what gets texted versus emailed to the whole church? Our emails have never performed well. We've used text sparingly, and the open and click rates have been great. Now, our team wants to move all of our most central communications from email to text. I feel like that's a bit extreme. Would love to hear your perspective.
So let's set a baseline here for what good communication looks like in a church. That's the 50% rule. If it doesn't apply to more than 50% of the congregation, it doesn't merit church-wide communications. Now, traditionally, we've discussed that in the context of announcements and email. So if we're going all in with texting, now we have to apply that same rule to church-wide texting. Okay. And this was mentioned in the question, but I find this interesting, the idea of ministry-specific texting. Because in our church communications plan that you can find by searching church communications policy on Google or YouTube, we talk about these rules and standards for communication that, by nature of how they're set up, kind of leave people going, well then, if we want to communicate with this group, how do we do it? And sometimes that can be challenging for people. And there are so many different ways of doing it that are kind of unique to your church, which is why we don't make like broad recommendations. But ministry specific texting, that's interesting, right? Like let's say you had a small group ministry, and in that ministry, like you're not going to have announcements for that, and you're not going to do like, church-wide emails for that. But within that specific small group, you could have texts going on.
Yeah.
Interesting. I do like that idea. I don't like texting for everything. I would not want to send like the church newsletter via text.
No.
When I think about the texts that I receive, they are transactional in nature, meaning, hey, your DoorDash is out for delivery, or your mail thing just got cleared from customs. Do you get any transactional text?
I get Telus texts me and says your phone bill's ready.
That's another one, right?
Which is not necessary, but I get it anyways.
Right. That's another. Yeah. So those are all transactional. In email, we separate communications by transactional email and marketing email. So transactional email is anytime you, the user, have taken an action and then you need like basically confirmation of it. So you submit a form, you get a form receipt. Here's the form that you filled out. You make a purchase. Here's a receipt for your purchase. You ask for information from a company. We've heard from you. We'll get back to you soon. That's transactional email. Marketing email is when a company, by their own prerogative, reaches out first. And so that's like, hey, we got a discount code for this thing. Or we publish a new YouTube video. Hey, here's the new YouTube video. Go check it out. Those are like both email, but they're treated incredibly differently to the point where you want like different companies to do them for you. So like if you get an email from Nucleus after you fill out a form, we do not use our marketing email company for that.
Right.
Like our marketing email company, we use like ConvertKit. And then our transactional email, I think we use like SendGrid or AWS. Like they're completely different. And it's going to be interesting to see how text goes in the next little while, because we remember when the spam folder became a thing in email. And then from there, what happened? We got the promotions tab, right? Gmail was like, enough. We got to break this up. That's coming to text. And this is the important thing that I think is worth mentioning. These amazing open and click rates are not because text is like this pure communication method that will never be sullied by the marketers of the world. No. It's just like, it's the virgin communication method that is going to be like sullied just like all the other.
Well, as far as Telus is concerned, my open rate is 100% on their bill texts. And I never read them. I'm just clearing out the notification. I don't even know why I'm getting those texts in the first place. I don't bother to go into telus.com and change my preferences. I just, open it so it's read and I move on with my life.
It won't be long before you have like, iOS already does this with like spam texts that they try to identify, but it won't be too long before like there are multiple tabs or some version of that, because in the same way we had to do that with email, we're going to have to do that with text. Now, just because that's coming doesn't mean that we should not take advantage of the amazing opportunities that exist right now. I think church texts, like all church texts, are great for like weather updates or urgent needs. I think those are great. And yeah, as to like some of the other smaller questions here, how many text updates are too many? Like no more than 2 a week, I would think.
Oh yeah.
Unless you're in like a number of different ones. Like it's going to be church dependent. But I'm with the questioner in the sense that going all in on text to abandon email is, I wouldn't do that, because, email has gone through some changes. I think we'll get to that in the next question. But it is still viable. And what you wouldn't want to do is like completely abandon that. We're going to talk about like, hey, if your email open rates and click rates are suffering, if they've never been that good, some of the things that we can do to get that back up. But I think using them in tandem would be the ideal approach.
Okay, well then let's talk about it. Next question. I've been scheduling our church emails for the past couple of years following your tips, and they've been great so far. However, as of late, the open rates of the emails have gone significantly lower, as well as click rates, since no one is opening them, of course. I'm not sure what has happened, and if they're going to spam, how can we get our congregants to change that? Thank you.
So Apple released mail privacy protection, I believe, in 2001, part of iOS 15. And what this feature did was...
21.
Very nice. It would prevent email marketers, like Alex and me, from using invisible pixels to collect information from recipients. The byproduct of this was that open rates became unreliable, because I think as of then, and presumably as of now, Apple Mail, one of the most popular email clients, according to Litmus, was used by 52% of all like email opens in 2021.
Wow.
21. So what that means is half of the emails that you would be sending no longer could give you accurate data as to whether or not the email was opened or not. So what this person is observing is like a pretty big change in overall behavior with email, because the big email clients were starting to say, hey, we need to advocate for our users a bit more, because it hasn't happened with text yet, but it has happened with email. People are just like abusing email clients, and thus the people that are getting punished from that, suffering the fallout, are our users. So let's implement new ways to protect them. So a couple of things that you can do here. You might want to consider pruning your list. Pruning your list is an email practice where you basically kind of go through, and most email clients can do this, say, hey, if you haven't opened the email in the last 90 days, 6 months, whatever it might be, removing people from the list altogether. If someone is on the list, but they are not doing anything, they're hurting your list. So yes, one more number makes your list look that much nicer, but you don't want them there. Like our email list right now is like 46,000 at Pro Church Tools. It's been as high as 70,000 and beyond. But we consistently prune, and for a while we never pruned. So we just had this number going up, up, and up. And then I was like, wait a minute, there's probably some junk here. And then we continually prune once or twice a year. And now we're kind of hovering around 40, 50,000. But that list is highly engaged. And that's what we want. I would much prefer 500 highly engaged email subscribers than 2,000 and only 500 are highly engaged. So those other 1,500, what they're doing is they are punishing the 500 that actually care. So it is your duty to remove those 1,500 if they don't want to be there. And that's the key. What you can do, and we always do this, is we send a series of emails before we remove them. And I love when I get emails from companies that are doing the same thing. They're like, hey, you're not following our emails? No, that's fine. Like, no problem there. We're going to remove you. If you don't want to be removed, just click the link in this email. And they're basically giving me the opportunity. Every time I do that, probably 10% of people click and stay on the email list. And the other 90% are probably like, I didn't see this email, so I don't care. Or, hey, this is actually great. Like they're respecting my time. They're respecting like their time. And that also, if you're paying per user on your email client, is a great way to not pay for people that shouldn't be there in the first place. Another thing that I've begun doing in my emails is asking for replies. So in the first email that we send out to every new subscriber, there's a PS that says, hey, email sucks today. Could you reply to this email and just say, hey, Brady? Takes you 8 seconds and really makes a difference. Every day I receive probably 10 of those emails, and I reply to every single one, because kicking off a new relationship that way is a very positive signal for the email clients, because now I'm not just someone that sends emails, I'm someone that sends emails and gets replies. And I've seen marketers and newsletters do this, and I plan on implementing more of this. They're asking for replies in every single email, not just that first one. And you as the church can do the same. That's one way to boost kind of your deliverability profile, because you're not just sending out emails, you're getting replies. So people like what you have to say. Final thing, you want to abide by the 50% rule again. So if you're sending a bunch of emails that are not relevant to most people on the list, that would over time create the environment where people are no longer even paying attention whatsoever. This is why the 50% rule is so crucial, because if you continually neglect it, you're conditioning your church to neglect your communications, because they're not of value. They're not even related to their needs and their wants. At the end of the day, all of this communication comes down to trust. We can hack things on the margins. We can follow best practices, but what are you doing to build trust with people? And this can be challenging in tech, in the world of digital. But every person on the other side of a text, on the other side of an email, is a real person. And in our conversations that are day to day, we do not treat them in the same way we treat digital, where we're trying to hack everything. Email, automatic huge open rates. I'm just going to send whatever because it always works. Look at the numbers. Right. Over time, though, that will erode trust. And look at what people are dealing with on the fallout of email. That's in part, perhaps because of churches and how they've treated email, eroding trust, but also in part to our culture as a whole and marketers as a whole that have eroded trust in email as a medium altogether by abusing it. That's going to happen to text as well. You can try to be the email list that goes against the norm. You can try to be the text list that goes against the norm. And that's what we as churches should be striving for. That's what we at Pro Church Tools strive for. But it all starts with trust. And there's nothing you can do on the margins that would undo that very, very sound principle.
I recently referred to us for the first time as the pastor and the pragmatist, which By the way, proposing a name change to the podcast, The Pastor and the Pragmatist.
I think that's on like a future episode. So you are now the prophetic pastor and the pragmatist.
How about that? But the thing that I love most about email, and those are very good pragmatic, tips and tactics to use in ensuring good deliverability, but specifically for like asking for replies. As a pastor, when I send out an email, I send out a bi-weekly newsletter. When I ask for replies, that not only serves pragmatically to increase deliverability and build trust with email clients and the internets, but it opens the door wide open to a brand new conversation with the folks that I really care about and who I'm sending these emails to. Just recently, I sent out an email and put a PS. Something in my newsletter was about music, and so my PS was like, hey, let me know what song you're listening to today or this week, something like that. And I just got flooded with replies, and that opened the door. So it serves to build trust with the email provider, which is great, but it also contributed to building relationship and trust with the real folks that I was talking to. All of a sudden, I'm having conversations with folks in our church of all ages that I wouldn't have normally had on that Tuesday afternoon. And it's because I snuck in, I sent my newsletter as I always do, but I snuck in, hey, go ahead and reply to this email and let me know what song you're listening to. And so not only did I build trust in those relationships with those people, now one of our church members sent me a song that I'd never heard of, which is shocking because I listen to more music than anyone in this office. And that song has had a measurable impact on me in the last few weeks. So like it's both pragmatic and pastoral to use email. And I'm sure you could find a way to use text this way, but to use email this way, not just as a means for communication, but as a means for relationship as well, while also doing best practices to build trust with the email providers at the same time. Moving on. Question 4. For the cheapskate guy with no fashion sense, what advice do you have?
So, self-declared no fashion sense from this gentleman. The only thing that matters in style is understanding how clothes fit your body. I think people typically believe that clothes don't look good on them. The reality is clothes off the rack look good on a very, very small number of people. This has been the biggest revelation to me in respect to style and fashion. When you understand what silhouettes flatter your body type, and the fact that, oh, my legs are a bit longer than my torso, or my torso is a bit longer than my legs. Oh, I'm a shorter guy. I'm a taller guy. I'm a thicker build. I'm a skinny build. I'm an athletic build. Like, there's a million different permutations of all these different combinations.
Yeah, those mannequins don't look anything like us.
and once you know like how things are meant to fit on you, suddenly like it's like the scales fall off your eyes, and you're like, oh. So for instance, this flannel, this is a cheaper flannel. And I wanted a flannel for fall, right?
Of course.
Right. And I didn't want to spend money on one. So I actually had this like in like my old closet, just sitting there. I was going to donate it. And I went in and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this to the tailor because it was too long on the sleeves and it was much too long. Like it was down to like my mid thigh. And I was like, who is this tall? Like even like, no one is actually this tall. This is for Giannis. So I get it way shorter, and I get the sleeve shorter. And suddenly, it fits me great.
Brand new shirt.
It fit terribly when I first got it. And so that's a good example. Now, you might say, okay, but how do I know what fits me well? And I think there are really two approaches to this. One, you can find someone, and this is what makes TikTok and YouTube so great. Find someone with a similar build as you, similar size as you, and see what they're doing. This was tremendously helpful for me. Found some like 5'8" dudes, and they were like, oh, this is how I wear things. I was like, okay. And you just start to understand like, oh, like Brittany asked me the other day, my wife asked me, she's like, why is it taking us like until our 30s to kind of like figure out our style? And I was like, because we grew up in a farm town and no one in our family is stylish. Like I have a stylish aunt. Oh, shouts to my aunt. She started listening to the podcast.
Yeah, Tante Lisa.
I'm not telling Tante Lisa's stylish just because. No, I have a stylish aunt. Like my parents, no. Like there's no one stylish in my family. And then I grew up in like a potato farming small town. And so like there wasn't any like semblance of fashion there. It was just like cowboy hats and like whatever. So what happens in what happens in high school is you start emulating like what you care about. I was dressing like all the bands that I liked. I was dressing like the worship leaders that I liked. And that was a big step forward, not because those clothes fit me well, but because at least I was like, hey, there's someone I like and I'm going to model them. The eventual step is when you realize like how things are meant to fit you. Another way of doing this, and I like this one, is if you find a store that will have free shipping and returns, just like max out your credit card and buy everything. And then try on everything. And what will happen is you'll stumble upon something that fits well. You're like, oh, off the rack, this is pretty good.
You can feel it. Like it's hard to articulate. Like obviously you can see it, but when you put it on and it's like the shoulders are like, you put on a t-shirt, it's a little heavier and the shoulders are a little dropped. It's like, oh, like this is, I feel comfortable. I feel good about myself before I even look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like it's going to look good because of how it feels.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know that I like a drop shoulder. And if you're watching this, Alex is wearing a crew neck with a drop shoulder. It's not a big drop shoulder, but it's a drop shoulder because the tip of his shoulder is not on the seam. I am wearing a flannel where the tip of my shoulder is on the seam. And I said this earlier outside in the office. There's one thing I don't love about this shirt is that it's not a drop shoulder flannel. I do have another drop shoulder flannel. It's way heavier, way too heavy for right now. Right now, transition season, it's all about layers. I need to be able to take this off and go t-shirt only if it gets too warm. But in the morning when I'm walking out, I need this. So that's the one thing I don't love about this. How did I discover that? Well, one day I put on a drop shoulder for the first time. I was like, oh, this is flattering. I like this for me. Interesting, because I have more narrow shoulders. I'm not like a big guy. A drop shoulder, it just makes your shoulders a bit broader. So like, oh, broader shoulders make you look a little bit stronger, make you look a little bit more masculine. I didn't know that when I put on the drop shoulder. I was like, there's something about this and I like. Don't know what it is. You can kind of start to understand. So now when I wear a flannel like this, it doesn't have the drop shoulder. I'm wearing more of a slim silhouette today. I couldn't wear like non-drop shoulder flannel with like baggy jeans. What am I, an idiot? Why? Because they would just be incongruent. Yeah. And so understanding how they all fit together. So max everything out, and then you put on something, you don't know what fits, or you don't know why. Why does this feel so good? And then it's really kind of your job to be detective and figure out what is it about this? Is it the length? Is it where the shoulders drop? Is it the color? Is it the texture? Is it the fabric? Is it some type of combination of any one of those things? What is it? And figuring it out from there. Now, women know this. They call this a haul.
They do.
Saying,
they call it a haul.
I got my Sheen haul.
They film themselves and put it on the internet.
So man, like just don't film it if you don't want to. Probably not. But like buy all this stuff with the intention of sending every single thing back and spending $0, but learning a ton of valuable insights. You might find one of those things fits well. Two great things. You'll gain an insight about what about this fabric, what about this piece works for me? And two, are there more pieces from this company? And do I now know, in a medium at this company, they tend to like fit better with me. You might also get something that's really close.
Yeah.
I have some jeans that fit really well, but they're almost always too long. Because I'm a shorty at 5'8", and jeans are made for 6-foot dudes. So I'll buy the jeans. They fit great in the thigh, in the seat, in the waist, and I'm always getting them tailored at the bottom. Like, no, don't expect clothes to fit you. That's the biggest thing. If you take anything away from this question, don't expect clothes to fit you, because what happens is if you expect them to fit you, you start to think you're the problem. Something's wrong with me. And sure, like we could all probably lose a bit of weight, like gain a bit more muscle, like walk a little bit more, get a little more movement, get a little bit taller, right? But or just find clothes that fit you after doing some alterations. That's the biggest thing. Find yourself a tailor.
Okay, I'm going to put you on a spot. I'm a cheapskate guy with no fashion sense, okay? So recommend me an online store that is affordable in a sense that it's not on the bougie end of the spectrum, but it's also not like fast fashion. It's not Shein.
Yeah.
Where I should go online and I should max out the credit card.
Well, the trendy option is definitely Abercrombie.
Yeah.
They're
coming back.
They are, for our age group, really kind of locked in on the style. And now in Canada, their returns, they can take a while to hit. And I don't buy from them very much anymore because of this. Because I'll get something, I'll send it back, and it'll be like 4 weeks before I get a return. Now, in the States, it's very different.
Sure.
So if you're a Canadian listening to this, maybe consider a Franken-Oak. That's where this flannel is from.
Yeah.
They're not too fashion forward. They're kind of like, hey, okay.
It's pretty safe.
I'm taking a step forward, but like maybe I'm not ready for a drop shoulder. It's like, okay, that's fine. But then Abercrombie, what's cheap? Even the fast fashion places, like, Zara is like crazy expensive somehow.
Can we talk about how Zara's website is the most insufferable website I think I've ever been on?
So Zara does have free shipping and returns, and their app is outstanding.
And they ship like same day. It's like Amazon.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it.
To your house so fast. But their website, it's so funny we're having this conversation because I was on their website last week because I'm like, it's fall. I want some new fall pieces. That was my first move. Let's go to Zara. Braid, I was on the website for somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes trying my best to get to what I wanted to see, where I wanted to go. I quit. I'm like, this is that bad.
And I should say, sometimes you try on something and it's so bad that there's no hope. And that's Zara for me. I have almost no pieces from Zara. They don't even remotely fit my body. Normally you try something like, okay, this is pretty good here and here. It just needs to be fixed here. When you're newer, you'll try on something and you're like, this is made for a different species. That's okay. You're not the problem.
Zara, Rebecca loves Zara, and we love Zara for Asher because in our experience, cute boys' clothes are a lot harder to find than cute girls' clothes. Zara has been great for us.
Oh, just want to say, anyone that's having a kid, name your daughter Stacy. Okay, I have no plans on having a third child. We have no shortage of girls' names. Stacy needs to come back. It's a great name.
Okay,
it's a great name. I'm even open to Tracy.
Wow.
I'm open to it. Diana, I'm open to it.
Okay. Not related to the former question or the next. I'm 36 now and really starting to understand what it's like to be left in the dust socially as new trends come faster and faster. Speaking about clothes, you can really feel left in the dust with fashion sometimes, but take heart. Fashion always comes back around, does it not? Do us elder millennials keep up, stay relevant and fresh without becoming cringy or overdoing things? I used to be the one who was up on all the latest and greatest, but now I'm still trying to figure out things that are considered outdated.
Sorry, I don't ever grammaticize, proofread these questions.
Sometimes I do today.
We've never gotten a question that's readable. I've never gotten even one that was like close to readable. So really practically, like, real exposure to younger generations helps with this. And I think before TikTok, before YouTube, it wasn't like generations were very much insulated from other generations, right? Like your exposure to other generations would be like when you go to like Christmas, Thanksgiving meal, timely, and like your younger cousin is there, and you're like, "Whoa, Speaking of Tanta Lisa, every time we go to Thanksgiving, her kids who are 10 years younger than me are like, Sierra, like, what are the kids up to? And she's just like, how about you go away?
Yeah. Go back to the grown-up table.
Yeah, seriously. But like, you can follow people on TikTok and on YouTube, or even not, and just be exposed to younger culture and kind of like see like how things are happening, and you can get like cross-generational beefs. Like TikTok, Gen Z is pretty good at letting us millennials know what's wrong with us. And then, we're not great at dishing it back because like, I don't know why, but that can be useful. I also think like what parts of being left in the dust are we like worried about? Because there is something to be said by like, I don't know when I came to realize this, but I was like, oh, my parents dress the way they dress. My parents are a bad example. They can't dress. You know what though? My dad's new wife, Erin.
Okay.
She dresses nicely. Good sense of style.
City girl.
That's true.
Yeah.
Also Asian.
Yeah.
So just across the board, better dressers than the whites and us. So she dresses well, but she doesn't dress my age.
Right.
But she's not dressing for people my age. She's dressing for her age group.
Yeah.
And this is where like there's a distinction between the person, and we'll use fashion as the example here, but it applies to vernacular, it applies to virtually anything. There's a difference between like you were cool when you were 28 and you've just been dressing and living that way since, and you're 45 and you're dressing like a 45-year-old who's stylish. And those are two different things. So I think it's okay to be...
one's a youth pastor and one's a senior pastor. You're right.
Right. Yikes. Oh, yikes. It's okay to be left in the dust with like vernacular.
Yeah,
you don't need to do the hello, how do you do, fellow kids, and try to like fit in. You don't want to put on and be cringy. You put on and be cringy, which is what this questioner asked, when you're not. That doesn't mean though that like, oh, everyone is moving away from skinny jeans. Like, unless it's like your personality trait to be like, this is me, and then by all means, like, do you. You're like, oh, the trend is we're moving to a more relaxed fit. Okay, so you don't need to wear like the baggy jeans that Gen Z is wearing, but like relax the fit a bit. And then suddenly like you're kind of like in, so there's a difference between, one more thing. I like to pick and choose the trends. Like there are 100 trends you could figure out across tech, across fashion, across language, across TV. Like you just kind of like want to pick a few that make sense for you. Like, one thing I've always liked? When people take the handkerchief and they like tie a knot and they wear it around their neck. I don't think it looks good on me because I have a really small head. So I don't do that, but I like it. But that's not a trend I can do, right? So that's another aspect to it. Picking and choosing and staying on top of things. And then if it's just like skills, like, YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? Like if a social platform comes along, like, yeah, you just got to do the work.
But I mean, we experienced that on TikTok, right? Like we, as a company, as Brady Shearer on TikTok, we've been on TikTok for years now, like for quite a while. And at the beginning, we tried to do what the kids were doing, and it came off a little bit like, felt a little forced, felt a little cringy. But we stayed on the platform and have really found our place on the platform. So we're there. We're not doing what the 16-year-olds are doing on TikTok because that would just feel, to the questioner, a little cringy, a little bit forced. But we're still there. We're in the vicinity. We're being informed by like what the youngins are up to, but also being age appropriate for 30-year-old men on TikTok.
That's a great point. We were doing things that weren't us at that point because TikTok was really only that at that point.
Yeah.
But if we were doing exactly what we're doing now on TikTok, which feels natural, it still wouldn't have felt natural then.
Right.
Anytime you do something new, it'll feel weird. Back to fashion. Anytime you put on a new piece of clothing and walk out of the house, you ask yourself, like, am I an idiot?
Yeah.
You ask yourself, like, this isn't me. Maybe it wasn't until now, but like, what I can tell you is like, the more you dress one way, people around you adapt. Like the first time your wife goes like, okay. And then a week or two later, you're wearing it confidently. Like, that really does look good on you. I like that. People have expectations of you. You have expectations of yourself, but those things are fluid. The worst thing that you can do is like assume this is who I am because this is who I've always been. Every generation, every age group, every time you hit a new decade, you are reinventing yourself. You can either reinvent yourself proactively or be forced to reinvent yourself by the nature of changes that are happening around you. I think being proactive is ideal.
All right, moving on from fashion. Next question. We've been posting sermon shorts for a few months to Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. We don't have a TikTok account as of yet. Since we have a backlog of content we could post, would it make sense to join TikTok and start posting, or is it too late?
I've gotten this question 3 times this week already, and the really easy answer is, yeah, just join TikTok and post.
Right.
You're creating content already for these other platforms, just post. It's interesting. We work with, more than 100 churches at Social Sermons. I can never predict, nor can the church, which platform is going to be the best for them.
Right.
Sometimes it's Facebook, sometimes it's Instagram, sometimes it's TikTok, sometimes it's YouTube. So publish all 4 and just see.
Yeah. And what's the risk?
You took 3 extra seconds to hit publish on a different platform?
Yeah. Do it. I love this question. I love all the questions. I love this one. What's the most interesting fact about your family histories?
How about you go first?
Sure.
I'm talking a lot.
Yeah. So I was born and raised here in Niagara-on-the-Lake. It's a small little historical town right at the mouth of the Niagara River. You can see Youngstown, New York, right across the river. You can see the big fort where, there a lot of battles were fought in the War of 1812. Lots of history here.
Who won that war?
It's up for debate.
Is it?
Hey, my wife just passed a Canadian citizenship test. She is an American, was an American.
When they asked her who won that war, what did she say on the...
She very confidently said it was the British, the Canadians.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. And so I was born and raised here. And so were my grandparents on both sides. They actually grew up around the corner from each other. And those are the only 2 houses I ever knew of theirs. They lived and died in those homes all the way up until the end. So we just been here. And on my mom's side, her grandparents, my great-grandparents, were Italian immigrants. And the way the story goes is that, I don't know how big the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake was back then, early 1900s. But it's small now, so I'm sure it was tiny then. Like, tiny then to the point where when my dad was a teenager, he was riding his horse downtown and buckling it up at at the Marino, which is my mom's family, the Marino grocery store, like on the street, like it's a Western. This is my dad's lifetime. This is 40 years ago. So I don't know what was going on when my great grandparents got here. And there weren't too many people. And I say all that to say that they were actually one of the first like immigrant families to settle in Niagara-on-the-Lake. English was not their first language. I'm not even confident that they spoke English at that time. And so just, this humble Italian family trying to find their way in Canada. I don't know what brought them here. My Aunt Mary Ellen would probably know. I should ask her. She doesn't listen to the podcast.
It's tough.
So they opened a grocery store, and my great-grandfather's name was Peter, which is where I get my middle name from. And so like we have this, my mom has this painting of the grocery store on the main street, or you see the Peter's, grocery up on the wall. My grandfather's a child. He's sitting on the stoop. It's cool. But yeah, my great-grandparents are one of the first immigrant families to settle here in this town of Niagara-on-the-Lake where I grew up, which I find it's really meaningful to me. It's immigration is pretty far removed from my actual context, with the exception of my wife who immigrated here from the States. But like, you know what I mean? Immigration like that, where you leave your country of origin to start a new life, a new family, a new beginning. And I take a lot of pride in that being my family history. But my mom's actually adopted. She was adopted into that family. And my mom is also Italian by heritage. And so she's so Italian that she fits into her adoptive family, my grandparents' family, so well. She fits like a glove. She looks just like them. And so looking at her and looking at the family and how they related to each other, you would never know that she's adopted, to the point where my first cousin, so my mom's brother's son, we're about the same age. We're 3 months apart. Growing up, we always got told, "Oh, we can tell you guys are cousins. You look so much alike," which is amazing because we don't share any blood. Because my mom's the only adopted one into that family. So that's my mom's family history in this town and as Italian immigrants. And I guess just, one of those humble stories of folks who left their country of origin for one reason or another and took a chance to start a new life in a language or in a country where they didn't speak the language, and built a life in a place where now I continue to live and work, and all that family's gone now. I never knew my great-grandparents, and my grandparents are all gone, but those houses are still there. We don't own them, but they're still there, and we still regularly go down and walk downtown. My dad will just tell stories all the time about the history of growing up there, and seeing my great-grandfather on the stoop of the grocery store smoking a cigar and driving his Cadillac around. But that's a little bit of a story of my family's Italian heritage in this little, quiet corner of Canada.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of Boston Mafia movies lately. The Departed, The Town, The Equalizer. Ever get into any, some like less than above board activity?
Listen, not personally, but I have heard rumors.
I love this.
That there was some mafia activity.
Let's go.
In my family of origin, so I cannot confirm or deny that. But I've heard the rumors.
Well, Alex comes from a violent background, not myself. Not myself.
You come from the peacemakers.
Yes. Yeah. So my family's Mennonite. And, our history is, nobody wants us. The Dutch were like, get out. So we went to Germany and they're like, not so much. And then we were in, I don't know if it's Russia, Prussia, Soviet Union, that area. And they're like, no, get out of here. And every time, like, things would go bad because we're like, oh, we're just these peaceful little nonviolent, we love the Lord. Mm-hmm. And they're like, get out of here. So the Mennonites were trying to come to Canada, and they're like, no, we don't want you either. And then a new prime minister came into power, I think it was in the 1920s. And then he was finally like, okay, fine, the Mennonites can come here. We're going to give them Manitoba, just cold and good luck. Mm-hmm. Hey, good luck to you. So we end up in Manitoba, which is, above the Dakotas. And it's, terrible, and everyone speaks German because that was the language that we kept. And, we all kind of hang out in Manitoba. And that was where, my grandparents were born. And they, created their own life there. We're still in Canada. And that's kind of like my family background. And also, my cousin wrote Franklin. So if you know the Franklin books, the Franklin children's books.
What?
Yeah, that was my cousin.
What are you talking about?
Franklin? The turtle?
We all know Franklin.
Yeah. Yeah. If you when Franklin gets a baby sister, Harriet, I think it's a pink book, Franklin's new baby sister. It's open it up, dedicated to me and my sister.
No way.
Paulette Bourgeois.
Wow.
Yeah. Went to her house. Think her daughter might have dated Drake. To be fair, everyone knows Drake's like through one connection or another.
That's true.
Dated might be strong. Sorry, Paulette.
That was something. And I joke about Rebecca being an immigrant. I guess by status she is, but that was something that was unfamiliar to her when she moved here, especially in my little corner of Niagara-on-the-Lake, was the presence of, like, as they self-identify, old colony Mennonites. Women who would wear like the full length dresses and the head coverings. I grew up amongst old colony Mennonites in
Is that
Mennonites.
Amish?
No,
That's Mennonite.
yeah, and they a lot of them come. I don't.
It's a bunch of progressive Mennonites from my family.
I know, but like the Mennonite community is going to have to forgive me. But I don't know the history well. But a lot of them came from South America, from Paraguay, and maintained the German language like our neighbors. They bought the house next to my parents the same year my parents did. So this is the year I was born. We've been neighbors for 30 years, and they're from Paraguay. Speak German. And have lived next to my parents in Virgil for their entire lives, and that was something that was common to me just growing up here. But for Rebecca, she was like, what's happening here? What's going on? Kind of a unique little complexion of our population down here in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Niagara Falls. That's a different scene, but Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Well, and little is the key because, there's nothing my grandparents and seniors love more than when they find out you have a friend and they're like, what's his last name?
Yeah.
What's her last name?
Yes.
So like my best friend, Justin, his last name is Drieger. And they're like, oh, Drieger,
Yeah.
a Mennonite boy. I was like, I knew many Driegers.
Yes.
And then they go back and forth. Oh, also I've
All the
decided.
patriarchs are Henry.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I've decided I'm no longer identifying one person as a best friend. It doesn't help anyone. I think I have 3.5 best friends. That fourth, I don't see him enough to really qualify him outside of like work context.
Okay.
But he's there. It just, he adopted a kid and now I never see him anymore. So he's 3.5. Okay. So 3.5 best friends. They're all different.
Yeah.
I can't. How are you supposed to rank them?
Yeah.
Can't. Won't. Yeah. So I will call Alex my best friend. I will call Justin my best friend. I'll call Mitch my best friend. And Tristan, I want him to be my best friend, but I need him to want me back.
You guys can work that out later. Okay, next question. I just went through your church comms policy, and our church is falling under the too much promotion category. We have about 12 separate ministries, each with 12 to 40 people. How do we still honor and invite others into their ministry without breaking the 50% rule? If it's supposed to be that specific ministry's responsibility, what do we do with the old ladies who don't know how to copy and paste, let alone touch social media? Also, those involved in any ministry are most likely involved in 3 to 4 separate ministries. Do we have a bigger problem than communications here?
No, I don't think so. It sounds like that's pretty regular church.
That's a problem I think that a lot of churches would want to have is thriving ministries like that and ministry participation like that.
That's true. And this goes back to that text question where at least in the internal comms with these groups, like, you could have an email thread, you can have a text thread, you can have a phone call thread, whatever it might be, WhatsApp is useful for these often. Couple important points. The 50% rule applies to potential, not reality. So if you had a church where, 50% of the church was parents, then like a kid's ministry announcement would qualify for church-wide comms.
Right.
Even if for whatever reason, only, 25% of them actually had kids in kids ministry. Mm-hmm. The other 25% stayed at home. It's a bad example. But the point is it's potential, not reality. The caveat is you also have to be realistic. So like if look, 100% of people could come to this event.
Right.
Like, right. But like you've announced it for 4 years straight and nobody ever shows up. Then technically there's the potential, but realistically there isn't. But sometimes I do see churches kind of tripping over that rule because they're like, well, only this percent of people come. I'm like, yeah, but like the announcement applies to like 70% of the church, right? Like, yeah, okay, well then that counts. So then what we also have are these things called sprint and sprinkle promotions. Sprint and sprinkle promotions. You can find this all in the church communications policy. YouTube or Google. Sprint and sprinkle promotions are basically for when you need to kind of operate outside of the rules. So a sprinkle promotion is when you create a piece of communications that is valuable on its own with a little promotion at the end. So for example, the way we do this on our platforms is I'll have a carousel post talking about social media, and maybe the final slide is like, hey, if you want to work with us one-on-one, go to socialsermons.com. Or hey, if you need to build your website, go to nucleus.church, as an example. There's 9 slides of value. That final one isn't going to like detract from the value. That's fine. So you could do that as much as you want. That gives you the freedom to promote anything you want ever. So, one example of this for this specific example would be like telling a story of life change in your church that like builds up the faith of everyone. And then at the end, you can be like, yeah, and this was actually part of a ministry called this. Feel free to check it out. 10 seconds. It's not going to detract from anything. The 50% rule exists because what do churches do? They don't really follow the church announcements formula anyway, 1 story plus 1 next step. They just get up there and they talk time, location, needs, price, expectations, and people just tune it out. So if the 50% rule is enacted, at the very least, when they are doing boring announcements, it'll at least apply to most people.
Yeah.
But the reality for most churches is they're doing boring announcements and no one's listening because they're not even applicable to them in the first place. So sprinkle promotions are an outstanding way to get around this. Sprint promotions are when you go, all right, 1 or 2 weeks of the year, no rules. We're going hard after this one thing. And you can only do that once or twice a year because if you do it too frequently, again, you get back to the problem of people not paying attention. And sprint promotions are basically what most churches do just indefinitely. So we want to limit them to 1 or 2 weeks a year. Now, it's unlikely that this type of ministry would fall under the purview of a sprint promotion. You probably want to save that for like Christmas or Easter or some big event. But you could have something like a ministry fair type of thing. And every year, you kind of give that opportunity, the ministry fair. You push hard. Everything gets featured for that 1 week. It's a ton of promotion, but it's for the ministry fair. Then you settle back into normal after that. Another great option is to have things like bulletins for specific ministries for people that don't like tech. So if you have this group of senior women, they're not going to touch social. They're not going. That's fine. You could have bulletins specifically for them, just like in a specific place. You can reference those, self-serve, and not dedicate like announcement time to them.
Right.
At the end of announcements, let's say you have 2 announcements and they're for big events in the church. You got baptism, you got kids ministry. And then you're like, oh, and by the way, if you're curious about the following ministries, this, there are bulletins in the lobby for you to check out. So now it becomes a self-serve option for people to opt into if they prefer. They feel valued, they feel acknowledged, but time-wise, they're getting 2% of what the other announcements are.
Yeah.
So you've kind of still avoided the downfalls of neglecting the 50% rule.
All right. Next one. Hey, Brady and Alex, I need your opinion about how we should lead our church youth who serve in tech or worship. There are a few youth who are either serving too many weeks straight with no break or who have a bored expression in what they do. Their parents and other leaders think it's fine and it will help them grow into mature leaders one day. I don't think so. I think that not only should they take a break, I believe they should reevaluate what, how, and why they're serving, even if it means we lose volunteers. P.S. I know that this incident was a long time ago, but I think Alex deserves his own spin-off episode after Brady called him Dark Roast Daddy. That intro was so sus, so cringy. I rushed to put on headphones. Come on, Brady. You owe him that, man. You owe him. You owe him his wife, his baby, and his coffee boys in Atlanta, Georgia. Just give it to him, Brady. Hashtag the Pro Coffee Brewers Show.
The Pro Coffee Brewer Show is awful.
I did not write this question. Just to be clear.
Dark Roast Daddy. Now, that is a segment I like kind of as an idea. All right, we're going to go to our segment. This is, coffee talk with Dark Roast Daddy.
Okay, we'll workshop that. I'll take a segment instead of a show. I don't really have enough time and energy for an entire show, but I'll take a segment.
Dark Roast Daddy.
Work on
wild. That. So,
what are we going to do with these youths?
With these youths. So I started thinking about this question and I thought, okay, what motivates people? Got 3 things. Alliteration for the Lord.
Of course.
Money, meaning, membership.
Nice.
You're probably not paying them. So Money is not going to motivate them. When people say we need them to grow up to be good leaders, they might be thinking about volunteer work, but they're probably thinking about like good leaders in ministry that's paid, or good leaders in their jobs, good leaders in their homes. Okay, like none of that is like I'm giving my time for free. Okay, like you might, but your home's like no, like that's your wife, that's your kids. Like you get so much back from them. This is like I'm just giving of my time and energy for free, and they're not being compensated. So like they might not be motivated then. Money's a big one. Let's talk about meaning and membership. If you can't pay people, which you probably can't, that's fine. Meaning and membership. Meaning is when someone wants to be a part of something like bigger than themselves, and they care about the mission behind what they're doing. Like, you know what? When I show up and do something, people's lives are affected because of that. And that inspires me. That motivates me. There's meaning there. And then membership. This is when everyone else is doing something and you want to be a part of it as well. If everyone, like I remember when our youth group was like this in high school, it's like you didn't want to miss even a week because it was so fun. And like we were always doing cool things and like everyone loved God and it was so awesome. Like you wanted to be a part of that because you wanted to be like with everyone doing the awesome thing. And then there was also meaning because like we're making a difference in people's lives. And there was no money because of course, well, come to youth group, we'll pay you $5. Like, you know, that wasn't a thing. So just like understanding what motivates people, I think, you know, these questions are always about, you know what, they should do that because they want to grow up and do the hard things. They need to realize, like, I understand that, like, we don't want to raise soft people, but everything is transactional. And I think when we neglect the reality that things are transactional, we just expect people to behave in ways that are just not human. Everyone does something for a reason. It could be an altruistic reason, but it's still going to be rooted in meaning then. The meaning of I want to follow Jesus and I want to live like Jesus, and it will cost me, but it's worth it because I'm living according to these values. And the values are, there's this meaning attached to it. You don't just do something because like someone tells you to. Because even then, the motivation, it's transactional. It's shame, fear, punishment-based. If you want to go about that, go ahead. But I think this person is kind of acknowledging this feels like a very short-term approach.
Yeah, I agree. Next question. Best fiction book that you have enjoyed over the summer or you're reading currently now?
Yeah, so we talked about like reading diets. I don't have really fiction in my reading diet.
Me neither.
But I was watching Love is Blind Season 5. Are you
What
caught
episode
up?
are you on? No.
We're caught up. First 4 are done.
We're on episode 2.
You need to text me when you're done episode 3.
That's what I've heard.
Then
I have avoided spoilers, except I saw on TikTok that said I was not prepared for the plot twist at the end of episode 3, and then I had to hold on the video and click not interested because I didn't want to get on.
I was going to say, how have you avoided spoilers?
Yeah.
Okay, then I need you to text me after episode 4.
Okay. I'll put in some work tonight.
So this is not a spoiler. I don't know who this was, but like Love is Blind, dating reality show. Yeah, I'm reading that. I'm reading this. What am I reading? I'm reading the closed captions on the movies that I watch. All right, I read the closed captions on The Departed.
Yeah.
And guess what? Expletives were only every other word. I think The Departed at one point was the movie with the most curse words. I think it's been top since. So Love is Blind, people dating through the pods so you can never see each other. That's the premise of the reality show. You, of course, don't have your phones. So what do they give you? Alcohol or something in a bronze glass that you don't know, a journal, and then sometimes people have books. One of the contestants, what book are they holding? Last fiction book I read, probably the last one you read.
Are you talking about Where the Crawdads Sing?
That's right. And I was like, look, they're reading the book.
I'm so glad you brought this up. So I read this question, prepping for the podcast, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't read fiction, but I don't want to say that out loud because it sounds like... It sounds
dismissive to people that do.
Yes.
Right, so, I read nonfiction. I'm just that much more of a better person than you.
And it's not that. We've talked about this on the show. I can't see things or hear things when I read anyways. So it's like, why am I reading this? Anyways. So I'm thinking about fiction. I'm thinking about fiction books. I'm trying to think, what was the last fiction book I read? The last one I read with my eyes, I literally cannot tell you. I cannot tell you. It might have been like The Hobbit when I was 11. Like, I cannot tell you. But what did come to my mind?
They're like, oh, the trolls are here. And you're like, what? I don't want to.
what did come to my mind immediately after that was this ethereal memory of 17 of the most fondest hours
Oh,
of our friendship. You, me, your other half best friend, Tristan.
this is what I mean.
We're in the Icelandic Highlands, and these three lonely boys. What are we going to listen to in the Rover? Music? No. We're going to listen to an audiobook. I think it was the first audiobook I ever listened to. I don't know which one we listened to first.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I ever listened to an audiobook. And we chose this book that was really well reviewed, had recently come out, Where the Crawdads Sing. And like I said, I can't see when I'm listening to the book, but what I can tell you is that us three grown men for 17 and a half hours were gripped every moment by the lyricism of the book, the suspense in the plot. There were moments where we were cheering in ecstasy. We are crying in
Booing.
Yeah.
Sneering our teeth.
Yes. And it was like 17 hours was not a short amount of time. We spent a lot of time in that car. And I don't know how I could ever forget that time. It was that book was formative for me, for us, dare I say.
For everyone.
Yeah.
I love you, Kaya.
And you know what? The movie was not half bad.
I never saw it.
I've heard mixed reviews. Some people were disappointed. They didn't tackle like every plot point,
Well.
which again, I don't read fiction. So this is the first time that I've read a book before the movie. Usually I see the movies
right.
I guess with the exception of the Chronicles of Narnia. But like, so I usually just watch the movies like, yeah, that's a great movie. And then the people who read the books like, oh, it wasn't, they didn't stick to the canon or whatever. So some people got a little bit upset about that movie. I really enjoyed it. But man, name a better fictional book.
I'll wait. The best part about that is that the reason we read it was because my wife read it and said, you'll like it.
Yes.
And then I come back, I'm like, we just had this most transcendent experience. She's like, what? And I was like, there was this book we read. She's like, yeah, I know, I told you to read it. And I'm like, hey, I had a moment that you were not a part of. She's like, but it was my book first. I gave it to you. I'm like, this is not you. This is our book now.
As we're talking about this, I realized I lied. That wasn't the last fiction I listened to. Since that trip, Rebecca and I have kind of adopted the practice of listening to fictional books on our drives to South Carolina. And so we've listened to some Agatha Christie. We've listened to some Lucy Foley, who's like a modern Agatha Christie, mostly murder mystery stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same plot,
Can't go
different
wrong.
setting. Shout out to Audible again.
They hope you've enjoyed this message.
Yeah.
This programming, I have a long drive to do next week, headed to Vermont, driving by myself, 8 hours both ways.
First road trip in the Tesla.
In the
Godspeed.
Tessie. So I was figuring out where to supercharge.
Right.
And I am doing my final supercharge in Burlington, Vermont. And, I'm like, okay, like, what am I going to eat? It's dinner time. I'm planning on where am I going to eat? And like, all Britt hears in the office yesterday is, let's go. And she's like, what? And I show her a screenshot. I was like, this is the supercharger. 30 meters across the street, Chipotle. It's right there. I don't have to go anywhere.
Amazing.
Praise God. So I was like, what book am I going to listen to? And the one I rolled up, good diet of books, is an autobiography, Abraham Lincoln's by John Meacham, And There Was Light. 9 hours at 1.9x speed, which is what I'm listening to right now because I'm a sicko teetering on the edge of disaster. I've already listened to the first hour, which was the prologue. So I've got 8 hours. So I got Abraham Lincoln, straight drive, through the Northeast.
Yeah.
I just want
fitting.
to, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. So I'm excited about that.
Anything planned for the way home?
No, I have to figure the way home still.
Right.
Yeah. I don't have that sorted just yet. I love you, Kaya.
Yeah, fiction.
Well, you and we're having a bit of a crisis right now because since your son was born, baby boy number 1, Dark Rose Daddy, we haven't been on a trip.
Yeah.
And your next son is born, I don't know when this podcast is live, right now. Like,
he might exist.
And we didn't travel for 2.5 years with one boy at home. Now, to be fair, this was when your wife was an illegal alien. So maybe things are different now that she's like a legitimate citizen. But like, when are we going to travel again? This man texted me yesterday. He's like, what was this trip from? Just sending me pictures of like cans of chili.
It's been coming up a lot.
Yeah,
lately.
that's what I'm saying.
I know.
But like, what are we we're so in, there's nothing that can be done. It's a problem.
We'll find a way. God will make a way.
Thank you, Lord.
Hey, Brady, longtime listener, first-time questioner. I've been noticing some of the pages I follow on Facebook have been posting the link to their YouTube or Vimeo video in the comments rather than in the post itself. It forces you to open the comments and actually engage with the post in order to watch the video that they linked. What do you think about this? Does this actually increase engagement? Will the algorithm see more engagement with your posts and so broaden your reach? Thanks for all your insight and wisdom. Keep on preaching to us.
Yeah, so I think the psychology at work here is curiosity. Like, link in the comments below. Like, or I'll give my answer in the comments.
Yeah.
Like, oh. The other reason that this works is because it inverts what's expected on social media, what normally is happening. Basically, us as creators are like, please like this post. Please share this post. Please read this post. Please watch this video. Like, I'm going to make it as easy as possible for you. So it's kind of interesting when you see someone actually make things more difficult to engage with. They're like, if you want to know what I have to say, you have to do more. It's asking more of your audience. And the reason it's successful is because you're basically doing the opposite of what's expected. Like, wait a minute, people are always begging for my attention and I'm not easy to give it because I know they're begging for it. It's like this person, like, they want me to actually work for, I'm actually that much more likely. So that's kind of like why it's happening. You know, like all tactics and techniques, like really useful.
Yeah.
And you just want to use it sparingly, right? Like if you did it all the time, it wouldn't work anymore.
Yeah. I designed a social post like this for Nucleus Media recently. And it went something like 3 ways to ground yourself in this moment. So it was like, it's a carousel post. Like number 1, feel your feet on the ground. Number 2, take a deep, controlled breath. Number 3, pray this prayer with us in the comments or in the caption. So you have to click the caption to open it to pray the prayer.
Oh, wow, you got him.
I got him. Well, we'll see. But yeah, I think it'll get him. But like you said, useful tactic. It'll pretty much always get them, but use it sparingly because I follow folks who are always burying the lead
Really?
in the comments, and it's like I'm just swiping past this.
Huh, I can't say I know anyone that always does that.
Yeah. Next question. Am I really reading this out loud? Good morrow, Canadian MGK and Man Bun Jesus.
I'm okay with MGK. I'll take it.
And I'm okay with Man Bun Jesus because I have had some disparaging remarks about my man bun on the internet, so I'll take that.
And SFW.
Yeah. Yeah, we deleted those comments for sure. What events and gatherings, in your experience, are churches doing that current members like to attend and are great for non-members to be invited to? We just want to create a better sense of community within our church and invite new people to get to know them and introduce who we are.
Yeah, easy answer. Really anything that involves kids or families.
Yeah.
And this really does make people feel closer as a community because you're not separating parents from kids. Usually it's a family event. And, you know, for better or for worse, we're not here to kind of like debate on this. Typically you got kids programming, you got adult programming in church, right? You're separating the kids from the parents. Whereas when in these types of events, like everyone's all together. So you have church families all together, non-church families all together, just a merry old time. Examples of this, you know, fall festival, harvest festival, things like that.
Trunk or treat, very topical right now.
Absolutely, trunk or treat, Christmas or Easter related. You know, your church, maybe you're the church like, hey, pictures with Santa, Easter egg drop, million eggs. I love the egg announcements, man. Every year, 78,000 eggs. Last year we had 50,000 eggs. This year, 800,000 eggs.
It is so outside of the realm of my context for.
Well, that's what I said.
Like,
you know, your mileage
church.
may vary. The best are the announcements that lead up to that. Please come to the church. We need to pack eggs.
Yes.
We have to pack many eggs. No chocolate. It can't melt.
The helicopter is booked. We need to pack these eggs before the chopper gets here.
And then you get to it, and it's like 1.7 million eggs. Who's cleaning up the eggs, man?
Sprinkled from heaven. No, they weren't sprinkled from heaven. We packed them by hand.
It's
My fingers are bleeding.
Literally candy grenades. Like you got like the chopper. It's like, drop the bomb. Here come the eggs.
Here's me at Easter. I go to Bulk Barn by myself and I buy a couple bags of chocolate eggs. And on Easter Sunday, I'm marking out a little circle in our property with caution tape. And I'm out there sprinkling chocolate eggs into the grass before the kids come. So that's how we do it at Life Abundant Egg.
Your church is like right across the street from ours.
Yes.
Just imagining like our church doing this. Like, we got an egg bazooka. Boom. And Alex is
There's shrapnel falling on our property.
It's like, where'd the eggs go? They're on Life Abundant. Get them. It's like, it's an opposing church coming over on Easter Sunday. Get their eggs.
Oh my God.
The kids there at Life Abundant. Oh, what happened to all of our eggs? The Central kids, we got them.
Oh my gosh. It's so bad because it is plausible. Like our churches are that close to each other.
Yeah. Boom.
I mean,
woo. You know those confetti cannons?
yeah.
Yeah, that's what we need. We need like egg cannons, like in the sanctuary. End of a song, eggs. Boom.
Yeah. Your church is probably already planning for Easter.
Well, we're definitely like done Christmas. I know. I was talking to our worship pastor. She's like, I finished Christmas months ago.
Yeah.
You fool.
I remember we were doing some work with your church this time last year, a little bit earlier, like late summer last year, and
with
I was
bazookas?
with Mel, and she was singing Christmas music. She's worship pastor, and she was singing Christmas music to herself, and it was like August, and I'm like, Mel, what? Like, are you singing Joy to the World? She's like, yeah, just finishing up Christmas. I'm like, finishing up Christmas stuff. It's July, but you gotta do what you gotta do. You got helicopters to book, cannons to load.
To be clear, I don't think we've ever done that.
No, but some churches have
4.5 million eggs.
This next question, a twofer. First of all, is Nacho Libre a good movie? And second of all, what are your favorite 90s sports movies?
Okay.
Would you categorize Nacho Libre as a sports movie?
No, they were separate questions. I put them together.
Okay.
Because the
When
first
I read
one,
it, I was like, okay.
the first one's an easy answer. No.
Yeah.
But people love Nacho Libre.
Yeah.
And there's something about Christian kids loving Nacho Libre. My wife and my brother-in-law would pummel me. They stay in that movie. They ride for it so hard.
It's clean, right?
That's why.
So they're allowed to watch
it's
it.
dumb
They're
humor.
not watching Step Brother or what's the other one I'm thinking? Not Anchorman. Well, Anchorman's
Old
one
School.
of them. Napoleon Dynamite.
Right. They needed like dumb humor that was clean because that was the only intersection of humor that a homeschool Christian kid was allowed to have.
Yes.
So like nothing raunchy, nothing explicit. So then what's the only type of humor left? Dumb humor.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, oh, Jack Black, he's like a big actor doing dumb humor. I watched it and I was like, what are we doing?
Right.
What is this?
Yeah.
The only part about that movie that's redeemable is when they say, what's on the inside of a man? You'll find his nucleus.
Right.
Because we run a platform called Nucleus.
Yes.
No, it's not a good movie. It's bad. You want a good Jack Black movie to show your kids? School of Rock.
Yes.
That's what I show my kid. And now
Great.
we sing that.
Yeah.
We sing the School of Rock song.
Okay, so what about 90s sports movies?
Okay, I got Space Jam,
Classic. Nothing better.
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
Doesn't really hold up, but like I watched Mighty Ducks so many times.
All of them?
Yeah, like mostly 1 and 2, but
Yeah.
a little 3.
Yeah.
Mostly 1.
Yeah.
And then definitely not, like these are like 90s sports movies that I've visited as an older person, not as a child. White Man Can't Jump and He Got Game.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of those, but Mighty Ducks was on a heavy rotation, both at home and at my grandparents when I went there when I was sick. It was
Yeah.
like I'm either watching Mighty Ducks or Titanic, which
Titanic?
I should not have been watching Titanic. But that movie was so long. I remember it was a two.
I was
VHS
thinking about that the other day. I was thinking about that exact thing. The 2 VHS of Titanic.
Second VHS. Yeah.
Leo was in his bag. Like,
Yeah.
well, it just won't fit on one tape.
Yes. What I was thinking off the top of my head, like, what are other 90s sports movies? I couldn't come up with anything. I'm sure there are.
Other 90s sports movies.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with anything.
But the Big Green, there was like the soccer team. And I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Sandlot.
Never saw that.
Oh. Never saw Sandlot?
No.
That's crazy.
And there was a Space Jam 2.
No.
Well, like recently.
With LeBron. Yeah.
Did you watch that?
Yeah.
How was it?
Fine.
Yeah.
Me and Lil watched it. We liked it. We
And
watched
was it a
couple of times.
remake of the first, or was it like an altogether new plot?
Very similar.
Okay.
Yeah. But just like modernized.
Yeah.
Here they're modernizing The Office? They're rebooting it? What is that? That can't be real.
saw something about that, and I didn't want it to be true, so I kept scrolling.
That's the darkest
Yeah.
timeline.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on.
Well, if you were designing a church website with only essentials, what info or how many pages would you include to be effective yet minimal?
Yeah, so here's my list for like the absolute minimal list of things you need for a church website. 5 pages only. Homepage, about us, staff, calendar, next steps.
Easy.
You want to see that? How I would arrange that? Lifeabundant.la. That is a Nucleus demo. I built it. Shows you exactly those 5 pages. Hopechurch.xyz. I built that one too. Realitybible.church. I built that one too. Go to those 3. 5 pages only. and say, okay, but what about kids ministry? It's all there. That's how I would do it. Second thing you need, photos of people in your church. Non-negotiable. I need to see the people in your church, see the sanctuary, the lobby. What is the church like? If you're going minimal, then those photos can communicate in an instant what would take paragraphs worth of text. So that's a great way to be minimal. Yes, it requires you to take some photos, but I mean, we're shooting ProRes RAW now on these phones, apparently. So you can take great photos even with your phones. Address and service times on both your homepage and in the footer. Having them in the footer means they're going to be accessible on every single page. Prominent on the homepage, you can see again how I did on those demo websites, and that will give you a good idea of that. The launcher, by Nucleus, free plugin. Get that, download it, install it. Works on any church website, free forever.
Truthfully, that's the key to having a minimal church website with 5 pages or around there. Is having an area, whether it's a next steps page or the launcher where you can host all your next steps, to collect all the data for all of your ministries. You could have 100 ministries. You could have 3,000. You could have 4.2 million small groups to match your 4.2 million eggs. And you could host them all in the launcher, so it doesn't account for 4.2 million pages.
Yeah.
All those next steps can be taken in that one place.
Final thing, plan a visit sequence. This could be really robust. It could be simple. You don't need to do really, there's some plan a visit sequences. You're like, that kind of turns me off. That's not my sort of thing. But someone wants to come to your church. There should be just something.
Yeah.
Whether it's just a simple page that shows them what to expect, or hey, a form and a flow, and you can go and see, our example of this. We have a full plan a visit sequence that you can, copy and paste. There's a slider, carousel post dedicated to that on my Instagram. You can also go to those demo sites and see how we do it if you want it to be more elaborate, but some type of plan a visit sequence.
You mentioned the new iPhones. Not included in this episode are two most affectionate question is what's right lately and what's wrong lately. What's right lately is I got my phone fixed. So shout out to me for getting my phone fixed. Looks sharp. What's wrong lately is that I ordered a new iPhone 15 Pro Max over the phone and it got delivered yesterday. To my surprise, it was not the 15 Pro Max. It was the 15 Pro.
Yes.
So yeah, it looks like a miniature phone because I've had the Max version for as long as they've made them. We can't go back.
We're both Max boys.
I picked it up out of the case and I knew immediately. I was like, this feels fake.
It's a microphone.
Yes. So last night I had to go through the whole process of canceling everything that we had done.
Yikes.
Processing a return and then starting from the beginning on a new 15 Pro Max, which will ship. I don't know. We're recording this episode.
No, you wouldn't even had it by now. They take the Pro Maxes are always the last ones.
They said they'll ship it mid-November.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So that's where we're at.
You have been having a bad run.
Yeah, it's not great.
You
know what's funny? I thought it was turning around when the phone got delivered because it got delivered earlier than it was supposed to. I was like, wow, how am I getting this quicker than I was meant to?
That was so foolish of you.
Yeah.
So what's right lately? I didn't even add this. You know what's right lately? Putting interesting food items in guac. Hear me out.
Tell me.
So, beloved former Mexican joint near us.
Yeah.
Pine nuts in the guac.
Yeah.
Revelatory. I thought that was all that could be done. Then, our neighbors hosting a summer barbecue put shrimp in the guac. It was so good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess why wouldn't it work?
Like they were the little shrimps.
Yeah.
Then, our other neighbors were like, let's host it again. Someone should make guac. So my wife is like, I'm gonna make guac. Right?
What'd she put in it?
So she
can't do pine nuts because Lost and Found did it.
Been done.
Can't do shrimpies. Been done.
So she, not a cook. What's not even not a cook? My wife and my mom, rest her soul, are in a fight of who is the worst cook.
But you know what your wife is, apparently? A brilliant baker. What is that about?
She can do some baking.
Yeah.
And she can do the cakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what she did with the guac was she didn't mash the avocado. It was cut in like cubes.
Okay.
And then the tomatoes were a similar size and the onions were a similar size. So it was kind of like a guac salad.
Right.
Which was interesting. Similar sized addition, mangoes.
Yeah, the sweetness.
It was the hit of the party. Everyone was like, what?
Yeah, I've heard pomegranates.
So that was the next one I was going to say.
Okay.
I have yet to try that, but I want to.
Yeah,
we
why
got to
not?
keep putting more things in guac.
Little burst of sweetness, acidity.
Yeah. Great color.
Yes.
Match those red onions. I was thinking about it. Fries, my favorite food in the world. What do you put on a fry? I don't know. What do you want to put on
Yeah,
it?
blank canvas.
Chili, cheese, shout out to the goat, fries supreme at Taco Bell,
Yeah.
poutine, gravy, cheese curds, ketchup, a little malt vin. Love it. Like, it doesn't matter. It's a blank canvas. We got to treat guac the same way.
Here's my apprehension.
Okay.
Not about any of this. This all sounds tasty to me, but you and I are pretty far removed from Latin culture, and so I wonder if this sounds like slander to the origins of guac. I'm wondering aloud.
Well, we should probably consider that.
like there's folks listening to this. They're putting pomegranate in the guacamole. What are these two white folks talking about?
The whites. So okay.
Theory, it's a good idea.
That aside. Just, we've now tested it with a salty, crunchy thing, and it worked. Like a slimy seed in a pomegranate worked. A tropical fruit worked. Under the sea meat worked. Like, what is not going to work at this point? Just keep throwing stuff in.
Sometimes when we make guac at home, we sneak a little bit of Cholula in there. So it's a hot sauce, but it's but it's not hot. It's more, you get more flavor from it than heat.
Oh, I'm
so
into
you just
it.
sneak a little in there, just a little bit of depth of flavor, diversity of flavor, if you will. And I like to Brittany's innovation. I like a guac that is not like one singular mashed texture. I like like a light mash. There's like a couple bits of firm avocado,
Yeah. Oh, and I really don't like when it's like only guac, only avocado, lime juice, and salt. And it just becomes like a slurry.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
If the Latin American folk are listening, being like, "No, that's real guac," I'm sorry.
Yes.
We are departing from one another because we are not going to agree.
Yeah.
And if you say it's appropriation, what can I do? I can't do it. I can't do it.
Okay, well, speaking of additives to foods and drinks, the question comes in to a coffee talk with Dark Roast Daddy. Why does cream and sugar make coffee 10 times better? And it's a great question because it is like universally true. And like I'm willing to admit that like in a lot of cases, adding milk and sugar to your coffee makes it a little bit better. And that's because in most cases, the coffee that milk and sugar is being added to is either like, it could very well be rancid. Like it could just be old and rancid. It's just roasted too dark. All of that to say, or brewed improperly, all of that to say it is accentuating the natural bitterness of coffee and really downplaying the natural and pleasant sweetness and acidity that coffee can have. And so it's adding cream and sugar to coffee and turning it into something really enjoyable is the same reason, like, last night I made a raw broccolini salad. So it's literally just chopped broccolini, so like small broccoli, olive oil, and salt. And if you were to make it with just olive oil and eat it, it would just be like unpleasantly bitter. But adding the salt accounts for the bitterness. It counterbalances it. It's the same way we use acidity in the kitchen. If you got something that's a little bit too salty, you squeeze some lemon and it'll balance out the saltiness. If you have something that's a little too bitter, you add some honey or some sugar to balance out the sweetness. And so that's just the function that cream and sugar is playing in that cup of coffee that by itself is just going to be too bitter, too astringent, too rancid. It's accounting for that and adding some lactic mouthfeel, some creamy from the dairy, and
Lactic mouthfeel.
Yeah, sorry. This is the
Dark Roast Daddy,
and some sweetness to compensate for what's naturally bitter.
Okay, but
there's a whole other world.
Thank God.
It's like if you're drinking boxed wine, I understand why you're putting an ice cube in it.
yeah, like we're talking Dunkin's and Tim's here.
Right. But there's a whole, which is the majority of like coffee that's consumed in the world.
No facts.
But there's a whole other world of specialty coffee that I welcome you into wholeheartedly. Come follow me on Instagram, alexander.mills. And
Don't look at Dark Roast Daddy online.
yeah, no, that's not me. And there's a whole other world where there is a way to roast coffee and brew coffee and present coffee that accounts that brings out the natural acidity and sweetness. That actually, in some cases, when I used to own and operate a cafe, we would brew coffees that were so brilliantly acidic, and like acidic in the way that like a raspberry is acidic, like that good.
Oh, it gives you like
Yes.
the jingles on the.
So when I
on
say
the jaw.
acidity, that's what I'm talking about. So brilliantly acidic and so naturally sweet that if you added milk or sugar to those coffees, it would it would not play off that flavor profile well and would actually turn into something that was not enjoyable to anyone. And so those coffees we would actually recommend. We only serve black. If you want something to add milk and sugar, we have a different coffee. But this coffee is so brilliant that if you add milk and sugar, not even just from like a snobbery standpoint, but like practically, it's not going to taste good. So there's a whole world out there of black coffee that tastes better without milk and sugar.
So you know when you have like the feeling when you heat the raspberry, is there a word for that? Because I would like to propose a term.
Yeah, I mean the player there is citric acid or malic acid.
Oh, that's great. No, what we're gonna call it. We're gonna call that jingle jaw, because it gives you it's jingly. It jingles.
It is, yeah.
So because every time it happens, I'm like at home. I'm like, the thing is happening.
Yeah.
Jingle jaw.
Jingle jaw.
Ooh. Vote yay or nay?
Absolutely yay.
Yay.
I'm gonna rush out of the studio and start making some social content with.
I'm gonna tell my daughter tonight. Oh, you got that jingle jaw.
I'm just going to skip ahead to one more question while we're in the coffee corner. Someone's asking for a new grinder. They have a Baratza Encore. What do I suggest? The Baratza Encore.
Yeah, Dark Roast Daddy. Tell us about grinders.
I would say the Baratza Encore is about $100, $150 grinder, depending on your currency. And it is the best entry into burr grinders, which is a way to grind your coffee beans that's going to help you get to this place of brewing coffee that just is bright and acidic and sweet. It's the gateway drug for a lot of folks. It's the entry point into a world of specialty coffee, the Baratza Encore. I had one for years. My dad has had one. My brother's had one. We have one here at the office. Everyone has one. But at some point, you want to upgrade. And so a marginal upgrade would be the Fellow Opus. But actually, I would encourage you to take one more step. So you're going to double the price from the Encore to about between $300 and $400. And for those of you who are hearing me say $300 and $400 for a coffee grinder, and you're feeling the vomit rise from your chest, just you can hit fast forward for 30 seconds here.
Tell them how much you made me pay for a grinder here. That made me vomit in my chest.
Yeah, that was like $1,000.
Oh, the way he proposed this, like, look, this is the only justifiable option.
You know what I did? I actually used your framework. I gave you 3 options.
No, you didn't.
I did. I gave you 3 options. I gave you a cheaper one, a more expensive one, and I buried that one right in the middle. Anyways,
You're a real sicko, you know that?
The Fellow Ode brew grinder is what I would recommend. It's the best filter coffee grinder that I've used for the home. You buy it, you won't want to upgrade. You don't need to buy a $1,000 grinder like we do.
No, I would just wait.
That one is your way to go.
Yikes. Oh my gosh.
You taught me well. Hey, are the NCAA conference change-ups good for the kids?
We're Canadians. We understand that this is your second biggest sport in your country, college football. We don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
What I will say...
We're talking about football. I thought we were talking about basketball.
All of NCAA, but right now topical is football because it's college football season. And, you know, the buzz of the sports world is Colorado and head coach Deion Sanders. His son, who's the quarterback, I heard reported in earnings, because there's another acronym. It's like it's NCIUU or something. Sorry, I don't know it, of money that they can earn. NIL.
Okay.
And he's going to earn $6 million in endorsements. And they said, like, that means he's earning what you make in the pros. Like, if he got drafted, like, he'd be making roughly that if he was a high draft pick. If he was a low draft pick, or if he wasn't, like, in a highly compensated position, like, running backs don't even make $6 million a year anymore. So, like, as an amateur, he's being compensated at the same level of the pros. And that was interesting because what might the fallout be from that? That will have dramatic implications, because what do people do? Get me out of college, I got to get paid.
Yeah.
Now they don't have to. Okay, what does that mean for the pros? What does that also mean for the amateurs? And also, if Deion Sanders is bringing this much viewership, this much attention, and thus this much money and prestige to that school, when are other colleges going to start looking at, like, how do we get our own Deion?
Yeah.
And what might that mean for recruitment? You know, like, even seeing, like, the old school way of recruiting players was like, you're going to come here and I'm going to make you a man. That's Nick Saban or, you know, Coach K from years ago at Duke. And now it's like, no, come here and, like, you will be one of the most famous athletes, and that will directly lead to you getting paid now. It's not about me preparing you for the man you're going to become so you can make money in the league.
Yeah.
It's come and get the bag now. Very interesting. Don't really have any firm thoughts. I'm just kind of observing from afar. Fascinating stuff.
Did you see the cleats that the Oregon Ducks wore this a few weeks ago?
What was it?
They change with the temperature of the player.
Oh, yeah, that was so
Change
funny.
color?
Because their head coach with the viral clip was like, Dion's all about clicks, and we're all about wins.
It's like you're wearing your 12th color combination jersey of the year.
They
and your shoes
literally
change
changed.
colors.
Like, it's a literal fashion show. All right.
Where do you want to go next?
How much time we got here? We got I think we can finish the remaining. Oh no, God. Okay. Just keep going in order.
Okay, what's a good response to members not buying into the importance of social media in ministry? Do you think we would see more engagement by getting them involved in the content creation process to encourage tapping into social media?
Yeah, so you just went back to the money, meaning, and membership, finding the motivation, the 3 M's of motivation. I didn't realize I had motivation as the
3
fourth
M's
M.
of motivation.
It was right there.
Yeah.
Money, meaning, membership. Tap into that. I think what they're describing here is like the membership or the meaning side. It's like, okay, if we were all doing this, then you'd want to be part of it. Or if they understood the value of social, then they would ascribe meaning to the ministry.
Yeah.
Can we get ministry in there somewhere?
It might as well, because money is not going to apply to many. Like, it applies to motivation as a principle, but it's not going to apply very much to church. 'Cause
Right.
there's not
I
a
love how
lot
I
of-
said
not a lot of money to go around.
They're really tapping into the other 2 here. So again, there's only 2 they can't tap into, you idiot.
There's no money. Okay, after implementing your strategies for our social sermons, we've had some great results. Before, our highest watched video on Instagram was around 3,000 views. Now we've had 10 or more videos that have hit 14,000 plus. One went to 23,000 views and 1,000 likes. For whatever reason, on Facebook, we've had very mediocre results. I think that out of those same videos, we've only had one that went up to 3,000. The rest hover around 1,000. Do you know why that might be happening? I know you talk about Facebook going off for churches, but that's not been the case for us, and I wonder if we're doing something wrong.
No, you're not doing something wrong. This gets to that earlier response.
Yeah.
Like, I can never tell. Broadly speaking, for a while there, and this might still be true, churches were seeing kind of disproportionate returns on Facebook Reels. Why? Because most churches skew older, so their existing audiences on Facebook,
Yeah.
and like, it's been the oldest platform, so like they've had the longest to build said audience. So like it kind of makes sense in that respect if you're a newer church, or who knows why. Like this
Yeah.
is the one thing where I don't even really feel the need to know why. You make a single post, it can go to all 4 platforms, add X, make it a 5th platform. Just see what happens. No extra work, and there's no downside. You're not using these platforms in ways they're not meant to be used. You're using them in the ways that the platform owners and runners are desperately asking you to use them.
Yeah.
So just, hey, it's fun to observe, and then you'll get some data about your church's audience and your content's reach here and now, and then you can make some decisions based on that. But if one platform, like, forget one platform not performing as well as the others, you can have a post that does great on one platform
Yeah.
and modestly on another. So you know it's a winning piece of content, and it didn't perform equally. Who knows why?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And like you said, the risk is virtually nil. Like if you post it and it doesn't go off, you don't get 24,000+ views. You get 1,000. Well, you've served your existing audience, and that's good enough. Well, recently we rolled over into what is undeniably the best season.
Praise God.
And so a popular question comes in. What got you into collecting fragrances at all? And what's the move for autumn fragrances?
So I think what really clicked in me was when I realized like the memories that get linked with smells. And the more you do this, the more intoxicating it becomes. So I moved over into my autumn fragrances, say goodbye summer, and I just been waiting. And I wait until the calendar actually turns over because I need, not because like there aren't days where it's cooler before or days that are warmer after. I can go back, but I never go forward because like I just want to know I waited for it. So I pop off the cap and you give a couple sprays and it's just like, it's emotional. It's intoxicating. There's no other way of explaining it because it's memories of places you've been and experiences that you've had in this essence that can be experienced through one of the senses of the human body. It's amazing. So that's what I think really clicked for me. What do we wear in this fall? What's the move? I got Creed Viking, which is kind of like this Old Spice, mint, pink pepper.
Pink pepper, one of my favorite spices in the kitchen cabinet, by the way.
It's a great one.
Yeah.
Creed Aventus, one I'm wearing today. Some say the GOAT, you know, pineapple, smoky birch. Walked by, Roxanne was like, I like that one. And I was like, It's because it's the GOAT. Creed Original Santal. This one, I don't even know if I like this one, but I keep wearing it because it reminds me of like times. It's kind of like, it's like creamy sandalwood. It's kind of like, it smells like a little like older, mature. And every year I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to keep it, but it has this, the bottle design is amazing. Beautiful glass gradient. Tom Ford Ombre Leather. This is just sweet leather. Feels like, you just feel like this is masculinity. This is like, I'm him. I'm different. Armani Stronger With You. Absolutely. This is like a silky smooth vanilla with some rum. This is for when it gets a little chillier. This is deeper into autumn. I'm not pulling this out now.
Right.
Okay. Parfums de Marly Habdan. This is the fragrance I'm going to be taking with me to Vermont. This is a newer fragrance. I got it at the boutique in Paris, and it's kind of like small town fall fair packaged into a bottle. Okay. It's caramel apples. It's got woody notes, but I haven't worn it on a trip yet. So I need to link it to Vermont. I got to link it to the fall foliage in Vermont. It's just
You're going to have such a great drive.
It's good. I'm so excited for the drive. It's going to be great. And then Creed Spice and Wood as the final one. Just sophistication, but still nice and,
What is
autumnal.
what is it about Creed?
I don't know. It's kind of basic. They're like kind of like the one that people are like, they can't be that good. They don't last that long. And I you know what? Like, I have tried the more prestigious houses, the ones that cost more, the ones that like the insiders, the enthusiasts would be like, this is the real good stuff. And you know what? My missional values for fragrances are masculine.
Your missional values?
You spent 10 minutes on like coffee acidity. You said lactic, like you were like milky lactic feel in your mouth, you sicko. How dare you? Align with the mission. Get on board with the mission. Masculine, approachable, and age appropriate for me. So I don't like the stuff that smells older. I don't want it to be too complex. The problem is you get into fragrances and suddenly you're wearing like oud mixed with like, like funk. And it's like, well, technically this is a superior accomplishment. It's like, yeah, but like everyone hates it. So, and then also masculine. I do have some that are more feminine leaning. But yeah, that Creed, they just keep hitting all those notes.
Yeah.
And then I want it to also be long lasting. And a lot of the Creed stuff isn't long lasting. I have a bunch of the Creed that's not in the rotation. Fragrances I love, but they don't last.
Yeah.
So you can't keep them around.
And now you've built history with these. It's like,
that's the thing.
Like if
one
these
each
fragrances
season,
remind you of
but-
fall, like next year to do beckon fall, you have to play the hits.
Yeah.
Wow.
You really do.
Brady, will you ever let your hair grow long? And Alex, will you ever cut your hair short?
No.
No. I have had, I can count them only on one hand, like less than 5, but I have had nightmares about cutting my hair. Not because like I don't think I could pull off short hair again. It's just I know that I would have regret and I would not ever grow my hair out again.
What?
No, I grew it out when I was 19. I was in Uganda. I looked like you. I have that awkward middle stage. I was in
2
Africa.
years.
I would look like a fool, and I could do it there.
Yeah.
I'm grown. I'm on a podcast. I couldn't do that here.
Why could you look like a fool in Africa and not in North America?
Because I wasn't clean. I was backpacking. I looked borderline homeless. Yeah.
Oh, so it's because of you.
Yeah.
Kind of sounded racist.
Yeah. No. It's just like I had no shame. I didn't know anyone.
Yeah, that age and not knowing anyone.
Yeah.
So when I moved across the country, I changed my name.
Right.
Right? Like I was Cole Shearer, and you would know this because it's engraved in the opening pages of the Franklin book.
Wow.
Cole Shearer and Rachel Shearer, me and my sister. I was Cole Shearer for 18 years. Move out of the house, move across the country. Why am I going by my middle name?
Yeah.
This family tradition is a joke. Sorry, Dad. Sorry, Kevin. Your real name's Chris. We don't know. I'm going by my first name, Brady. Now the banks will actually give me an account. Go to the 2 final questions.
Okay. If you are a social media team of 1.
No, the 2 final questions.
2 final. Oh, all the way down there. Okay.
We were running low.
I know. Do you do fantasy football?
Do you?
I do. Do you?
Yeah, so historically, no.
Yeah.
This is new for us.
Yes, it is.
But we have a fantasy football league now in the office.
It's just funny because we're both avid sports fans.
Crazy.
Like sports in general. We have our preferred sports of discipline, like basketball for you and hockey for me, but avid sports fans and never been a part of fantasy before.
No, this is my first year.
I've got the app on my phone. What am I doing?
Yeah, yeah. And, there's only 8 people in the league. Every one of my best friends, including my half best friend.
Yeah, all 3.5 of us are there.
And then shouts to the other ones. And it's been really fun. And there are cash prizes. We're trying to motivate everyone, get some healthy competition.
Money.
Yeah, money.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
Because there's no meaning in it for most people here. And I guess you could say there could be an element of membership, like wanting to be, because we're doing it in the office.
If one person wasn't in it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And
but it's mostly the money.
And meaning is there for like us sickos that like sports. Because we're like, oh, I value this thing. Okay, so we're doing the draft. And one of our employees, he has the first pick. We still don't know what he did.
We're looking, we're like, where is he? His pick is coming up.
He takes his laptop and he goes into what we call the box of shame. The box of silence?
Box of silence.
I was thinking the cone of shame.
Now it's the box of shame for what he did in there.
So the box of silence is where we take customer phone calls. It's literally like a phone booth. Imagine a phone booth inside our office, except like
a minimalist modern phone booth.
And it's like soundproof.
Soundproof, yeah.
But we can tell he's on a phone call.
He's got his laptop up. It's a window, so we can see what's going on. He's on his phone, and the time is ticking down. We're like, where is he? And he's in there consulting with.
Yeah.
We still don't know who.
Our theory is he paid for a fantasy football like expert consultant to help him with his draft. Like he probably paid $200 to be like, I hired this expert. Let me tell you, those picks weren't the price.
Not working out too well for him.
So lots of fun.
So yeah, we're doing fantasy football. We're trying.
Yeah. $500 to the winner.
Yahoo makes it pretty easy, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like makes it easy for you if you want to get invested, like if you want to learn, but also for folks in our office who don't find any meaning in it and just want to pick their players. Like Roxanne, she picked the football players by physical appearance and just wants to.
So did Taylor.
To let let Yahoo start an active roster. There you go.
Although I also picked Kelsey.
Did you?
Yeah,
it's a good pick.
He's also awesome. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Final question on the show.
Real quick.
I don't understand this question. Sock, shoe, shoe, or sock, shoe, sock, shoe.
It's like, what order are you putting them on?
No, I understand the question. I don't understand how anyone could do anything other than sock, shoe, shoe.
That's correct.
Also, where are you putting on your socks? I put my socks up in my bedroom.
Yeah, they're on way before the shoes.
Right.
Americans, they're always wearing shoes inside.
That's true. They probably keep their shoes in their room.
Imagine like they're like, oh my goodness, just socks? Just out there? Raw on the floor? No, that's what socks are for. Your feet are raw.
And your shoes are dirty.
You're real sickos. Real sickos.
Thanks for the questions.
Please keep sending them in. Bro Church Tools. Thanks as always for your time, attention, and trust. We'll talk to you next week.
Why do we procreate? Why do we do any of this?
When the kids are sick, I don't even know how you are. I can't do it.
I was not prepared for that. Like
sick
kids.
kids.
There's just so many facets of parenting, but the way that a sick child disrupts your world, I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.